All right, so welcome back, everybody. Thank you for joining me, those of you who are regular watchers of my videos. I am back after a short hiatus. Yeah, as I say, thank you. And if you're new here, welcome as well. If you don't know, I talk about freshwater ecosystems. I talk about freshwater fish keeping, and I have a fascination with all things to do with freshwater habitats. So on this channel I try to not only speak about the things we enjoy and show you guys some cool things, some of the cool places that I've been to in the world, and talk about species, their habitats, their adaptations and so on. But as some of you may know, I am also involved in the freshwater conservation world with Freshwater Life Project. And so I do occasionally like to bring up subjects around freshwater conservation and explore how the freshwater fish keeping hobby can play a role in conservation, or how it can improve its participation in the conservation world, and just explore new and interesting ways that we can participate as fish keepers in conservation on the whole. So that being said, welcome to this short episode. I won't keep it too long. I'm just going to get straight to the point. I want to talk about the topic of fish keeping associations. Now, many of us are part of a fish keeping association, and there are actually many of them around the world, whether it's specific to something like good aids or killifish, cichlid associations, catfish groups, whatever it may be. There is an association or some form of organization near you, most likely, wherever you are in the world. So the thing I wanted to bring up is I put out a post on social media the other day. I was talking about the work that my organization Freshwater Life Project has done in Cyprus with the native Cyprus killifish, and really all I did was ask, is anyone interested in this fish, and its conservation? And when you work so hard on these projects and you get to, well, I suppose you reach a plateau at a point, and then you may overcome an obstacle and continue on your journey. You frequently meet these plateaus or these obstacles. And so it can feel demotivating, it can feel very difficult. Like, how do we overcome this and get to the next stage? What do we have to do? One of the great limitations for our organization is people power and finances. Those are the major limitations that we tend to face as a small grassroots organization. But what I was really heartened by the other day after posting that message was the response. I got, Facebook has died down a little bit in the last few years. Posts are not as popular as they used to be. I don't know if that's to do with my particular page, or if it's to do with the algorithms, or people just generally migrating onto other networks and them also becoming very popular. But I do use it still, as well as some of the others, and I was just very, very happy to have got such a positive response from people. But what I found was that there is a massive desire in the fish keeping community, particularly in Europe, to help conservation efforts through breeding. And that's great. That's really nice. But it's not always the way that we need help. And so it was interesting to have so much help sort of arise almost out of nowhere, but all the same type of help. Everybody was saying, I can keep some, I can keep a few if you can get them to me, I can do this, I can do that. And really all we need as an organization is someone with a little bit of a scientific background or a little bit of experience in conservation who can spare some time to help us write a conservation action plan. So we haven't really got to the stage of doing any sort of captive breeding or anything like that with the species. And there is little bits of red tape involved where this being a protected species, you know, there are hoops to go through if you are to go along the route of captive breeding. So it would be some time before we could get to that point. And as for sending fish outside of the native country to be bred elsewhere when they could be bred in the country if they are to be bred in captivity, it's not always our first place to go to, if that makes sense. In some cases, when you've got species that are really in trouble, it doesn't hurt to have them circulating in aquariums all around the world, because you can draw on those fishes if something does happen to a particularly endangered species. But yeah, as I say, for us, our priority has always been to empower local projects by local people, because that's, first of all, it's the easiest to do. If you want to get a fish back into its habitat, you don't have to jump through hoops to get fish sent from one country to another or something like that. They can go straight with obviously a few protocols and regulations in place back into the habitat, and of course the permissions. But also it incentivizes local people to take care of their local habitats, and that's where it really starts. You know, we all love the Amazon rainforest or the jungles of the Western Ghats, but from over here in Europe, other than sending money to some organizations, which isn't always the most popular choice for people because they often don't know who to trust or how the money is being spent and so on, there isn't really much you can do from far away. So there's a lot of there's sort of like an air of pointlessness to it. Not to sound too negative, but I hope you understand what I mean when I say that. But you know, local initiatives can be done by local people in their spare time, and action can be taken frequently, and that is what we really are interested in. So, you know, coming back to the topic of fish associations, what it made me realize is that there is support, and we have been working a little over the years with particular associations to try to raise funds for specific projects in places such as Turkey with the Anatolichthys transgrediens. That is a killifish species that is one of the top 100 most endangered species on Earth, particularly a vertebrate species. And so through working with the British Killifish Association, we were able to raise money to send a grant over to Turkey to do captive breeding with the project and explore how it interacts with its competitor species, which is an introduced Gambusia species from North America. And we've done other similar things where we've sent money to killifish projects in Mexico, for example. You can see all of these news articles on our website at freshwaterlifeproject.org if you're interested in more of that sort of thing. But yeah, the whole concept of raising money from fish keeping associations to fund conservation of the species they are interested in seems to be not frequently done, but a nice way for people who are really fascinated and interested in, for example, killifish, to take their fish keeping and their collecting to the next level. And what I mean by that is, you know, often in associations you'll see some people have spent years, I mean absolutely years, dedicating their time and efforts into breeding say killifish from particular localities, you know, down to the specific pool that they were collected from and so on, and then they breed them for a period of time, whether it be months or years, and then move on to another species. Often they can receive awards for the amount of species they breed, and that's great, but in the end it becomes, or at least to me, and I would love to hear your perspectives on this as well as fish keepers, particularly if you are one of the people that collects fish to breed them and do these things as part of a, you know, an association or a local group. But it begins to feel a little bit like, the only thing I can compare it to really is, for example, when you have stamp collectors or a DJ that goes and collects records for their music collection, and they reach a milestone, maybe they collected 1,000 records or whatever, or 1,000 stamps, or a particularly rare stamp, but then that's all. And with fish keeping, there's a real possibility to take it to the next level where you can actually contribute to conservation. And so whether that becomes just becoming aware of the fact that you are keeping an endangered species, and I've been to various events where people are auctioning and breeding and selling species, you know, captive bred most of the time, that are actually endangered in the wild, or critically endangered, or maybe listed as vulnerable, and no one has a clue. In some cases they're endangered in the wild, but so common in the hobby that they're actually unpopular at auctions and associations, and that's really interesting. Fascinating to watch. So anyway, we were discussing this between the charity trustees, and we were exploring, you know, from a sociological perspective, how interesting this is. And much more could be done, but just from a reward perspective, I would love to hear, how would fish keepers feel, especially fish keepers who are members of an association, feel about their subscription fee in part going towards conservation efforts. So for example, we as at Freshwater Life Project were giving away grants of £500 to particular projects to help them, say for example in Mexico or in Turkey or elsewhere, to do conservation work, captive breeding and reintroduction into the wild, and even sometimes students to explore the impacts on the habitats and things like that. Now, we want to know, is this something that people would consider supporting? Because funds go into your local association, and I don't know what else they go towards. In some cases, the funds will go towards events, or perhaps producing a quarterly newsletter or a magazine or something like that. But say your association was able to raise or contribute £500 annually to a conservation project for the family of fish that you are interested in, and your association you know, is focused on. Would you support that? So that's really the question I'm trying to raise today. I think getting more out of all of this effort that goes into breeding, a higher reward. Not only are you accomplishing all of these amazing breeding tasks and keeping all of these a huge variety of species from exotic places and in many cases quite remote places, but also giving back to the conservation of the fish family that you are fascinated by. How does that sound to you? Please do comment down below, whether you see this on Facebook or Instagram, or you see it on the YouTube channel itself. Please do share your views and comments with me. We're trying to learn more about how we can help the fish you love in the wild. Also, what I'd really like to hear is, does your association currently do something for conservation efforts? And what are those things? So maybe they do give money to a project, or maybe they do something else, contribute towards scientific research or something. What is it that your organization does? And what is it, if they don't, that you feel they could do, if it isn't what's already been suggested? All right, guys, I'm going to leave it there and just leave you to think on that. Please do, as I say, share your comments and suggestions with me so that we can really build on this and try to take our efforts to the next level. The main motivation for me here is because if any of you are aware of the 2030 agenda, in the future it is quite likely that increasingly the trade of wild animals will become banned. And so as we move towards this future, if we can demonstrate some evidence of our hobby contributing towards conservation efforts, there's just a greater chance that our hobby remains into the future. All right, so thinking way ahead and trying to put this sort of habit, this infrastructure in place early, so that we avoid a sad future for the aquarium hobby, should it ever be banned. All right, please do subscribe. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for your time. And if you do happen to be able to give any donations, please do visit freshwaterlifeproject.org, and you can give whatever you like. It could be £3, it could be $1, wherever you're from, and you can make that either a monthly thing or just a one-off. So every little helps. All right, have a fantastic day, and speak to you all at the next one.